here we go. First step. Got a lift that I hopefully can trust. This is my third one. The other ones are leaking a little bit, but this one seems pretty solid. That doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. And if it doesn't go down, we're good there. If it does, I don't know, still have the kickstand down. Hopefully it doesn't do it. I'll put some jack stands under there or something. How about that? But for now, let's go ahead and start tearing it down. Here's what we need to follow. All the directions. So basically, they want you to get it down to here. Not sure if I can skip any steps or not, but we got to get it down to the point where we can dig into the steering stem here. But we got to get the handlebars and the gauges and the headlight out of the way, because this guy needs to come off. We'll be unplugging stuff as we go. And looks like they want you to put a new one into these. Probably don't have to do that, but it's nice. It tells you to grease these suckers. Obviously, we need to grease these up. Here's an all balls kit. We have, I don't know which one's which, but roller bearings for the top and the bottom. I'm assuming the bottom's bigger, top smaller, and brand new races, which we want to replace also. But yeah, got to grease those up. And this basically goes through everything. So I'm gonna dig into pulling off here, prerequisite: fork removal and installation, handlebar removal installation, meter removal installation, headlight removal installation. So that's all not into this. We got to get all stripped down to this. So let's see what we can do. All right, so we got some 12mm bolts to pull off the handlebars. I'm just gonna pull off these risers. So that'll take that whole thing out of the way. We need to undo these guys because that'll let the shocks drop out. I want this to stay steady. I don't want to release this one because I want the whole front end to come off together, and I don't want these to move. Look, they're right just a little bit. There's that cap. It's a little bit above there. I'm sure there's some measurements to take on that. Maybe those are off. That could be too, because this one looks a little bit higher. Maybe we don't even need to do a steering bearing change, but maybe we do, because watch this. I thought this was interesting. And then this headlight and everything is mounted to the brace here. So I don't know how much we actually have to take off. I do think we need to get the gauges out of the way. They're a little crooked too, so maybe I can adjust them while I'm in there. But look, this bike's sitting off the ground, right like this. And look, we know there's a steering bearing issue because there's a dead spot right there. Right there. Like, it sets right into that spot. And go to the left. We can go to the middle, and it sits right in the middle and doesn't continue. There is definitely something going on. So I don't feel bad changing these out, because right there, there's something dead. That should not be catching and sitting. It's nice that it's sitting straight, but I don't know. It took some sort of, something's damaged in there. So we'll start pulling these screws out and get around it and figure out what's going on. When this drops, I'm gonna have my front brakes still attached. I'm going to have wiring for the turn signals still attached, which I might have to go in here to detach that. We'll see what's all in the way. This speedometer cable is still going to be attached. So yeah, I might have to do some more searching. Oh, that's easy. I can pull that right off. And then maybe I could pull the gauges off pretty quick too. So that just pulls out of the air. There you go, that's detached. So if I need to pull the gauges, it looks like there's a bracket. There's a bolt there. That's easy enough to pull off. And there's a bolt right in there. That looks like a 12 also. Maybe I'll hit that off when while I'm at it. Get this out of the way. Yep, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna start this is the brake line. Move that out of the way. I can pull it out of here, so at least it's not holding on. So 12mm is going to take off my bolts to start here. Here, here, and on the other side. All right, 6mm hex for these guys. Got them loosened up. So those shocks are ready to drop down through. This is bigger than a 28mm, so probably a 32, which I don't have. Wait, this is a 28. This is a 32. It's a little loose for a 32, so it must be a 30. I'm hoping I can do this without stripping it. I'll be careful, guys. Put something on your tank if you're gonna lean your handlebars up there. I think that's probably gonna have to be moved out of the way. But for now, this is what we're gonna do. So that brace is still attached. That's not gonna release until we get all this out of the way. So let's go ahead and torque this off very carefully. And I'll have to be careful when I torque it back on anyway. So yeah, cover your tank if you're worried about it. Don't scratch your paint. This is not the way to do this, but we're gonna make it work. Oh yeah, 12mm to take those off. That was easy enough. And we're gonna have wires holding onto this stuff. Wires and cables, so that is not ideal. That is not ideal. So I'll probably end up moving that stuff out of the way. It's not that big a deal, but it's just more work to do. If you're gonna take the headlight off, you gotta move these screws out of the way, 1 and 2 on the other side. That's a Phillips. And then disconnect all your wires inside, and then this will be easier. It's probably what we're gonna end up doing anyway. So yeah, then I can drop this whole front end off. Most of you probably don't want to beat your bikes like I did, but I took a hammer and I was hitting the triple clamp, triple tree right here. You can see. I hope it all goes back together all right. On either side, look at that. I worn all that down until I popped it off the top. So now we're to the grits that we need to be at. These guys need to come off. Got a lock washer here. Fold these little tabs down until you can turn this. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because this is loose. But something's wrong in here. We're gonna find out in a minute. Clean this off. But we got all this out of the way, which means these suckers, with all this stuff in the way, you can't really tell. So I can get this out of the way. This should probably be loose. Oh no, of course, the reason I had to get this off first was so that I could get to this. Once we undo this, the front should slide down. But like I said, I have all these wires connected yet, so I probably should go in here, disconnect everything that needs disconnected, toss what needs tossed to the side, then I can do this job properly. So I'm gonna bend these tabs down and probably just see what I need to undo once I get the front end off. So the top stem, if you're wondering, there's that cap right there. There's that washer right there. There's that screw bolt right there. The lock washer right there. And then here, loosen this up with this wrench. This guy, this is gonna be revealing our first bearing. So this is not held on super tight. I was able to move it with my own strength. So as this comes up, this is actually the only thing holding this front end on. So it's actually not easy at the moment since this guy's not on the ground. I just realized that. So yeah, everything I do up here is affecting, that's why this is so heavy. So once this releases, that whole sucker's gonna just drop. So I should probably stop recording and maybe put a block under this so that it doesn't just fall out of the way. All right, so that's our dust cover screw. Actually, we could be verifying what these are as we go. What is that? That would be 7. Dust seal, yeah, okay. And then 9 is upper bearing inner race. Well, we're ready to get into the nitty gritty here. I didn't do what I said. I just held up this to keep the weight off of here. So now this thing's ready to slide right down through. I wonder if it would do it Yep, there it goes. If I do it on purpose, there she goes, dropping down. So whatever we have here, check that out. So there is the old inner race that's being replaced. So that goes there. We have old style bearings. Here is, oh boy, what is this? I'm gonna have to make sure. This might be the inner race itself. All right, so all this stuff has to be cleaned up. We have old style ball bearings in there. And actually, they don't look that old style anyway. As this falls down, it's gonna get caught on all this stuff because I have my handlebars down there. There she goes, falling down. And what's gonna happen on the bottom? Same thing, all this stuff's gonna fall out the bottom. There you go, there's your ball bearings. And we're assuming something is destroyed in there. Hopefully, anyway, because otherwise we're doing this job for nothing. So, yeah. Something is not right. This whole race, these all ball bearings should lift out of there once I get through here. And this is just hanging on for dear life. I'm gonna need to disconnect everything, aren't I? All right, let's get to that. What a mess. Okay, 2 screws out from the bottom of the headlight and it's free. Kind of sits on a little ledge there. There you go, see? That sits on there. So now all we gotta do, unplug this, unplug these, and let this thing free. Still front brake connected. I know. Okay, I know all of this looks somewhat ridiculous. And this is my own bike, so we're going with it. Now, I did take the whole bucket off, the headlight, the turn signals, all that stuff over there. I could probably pull some more of this stuff off because what we really want to see is right here. This, and this, and this. This is what we want to look at. And make sure, I don't know if we're going to be able to see visually something destroyed, but here's the upper steering bearing, and it looks like I have a little bit of, looks like it took an impact right here. So that might be enough to be that divot that we were feeling. See that, guys? So that's tearing this sucker down. And if I've wasted a lot of your time, sorry, don't watch the rest. But right there, that looks like that might be our issue. Let's see if we have that on the bottom too. So now we're gonna have to clean all this up, clean up all the old grease. Now that you have this off, you can pull this right off. Examine this. I don't know, that one looks a little out of place. No, without the inner race, they're gonna fall out. So there's what we have on the bottom. And then this guy comes off. That's pressed on. So, gonna need a little help to get that off. But it's good to know what we have to replace this is already here. So we're gonna take a rag and clean up in here, clean up in the bottom, and take a screwdriver, pop this up off of there. All right, you can even see here on the inner race that we had some divots right here where that steering was resting. So was this loose? It could have easily been loose, but these are shot also because it's gonna rest right in there. That's where the ball bearings were sitting, and they're obviously etched into time. Can't really show you the rest of that. Down here, same thing. There's dents. Well, good shot there. There are dents there. You can feel them. See that? You can feel them. There's grooves there. Grooves there. So this was not steering smoothly. And also it might have been loose. I don't know. Maybe that's why I had a vibration, but this is definitely why I had that soft spot or that dead spot in the steering. Everybody I watched on the YouTubes was taking the whole triple tree off of the, they took the wheel off, then they took the shocks off. Well, I'm trying to avoid that, but I think I'm gonna end up loosening these and taking this off anyway. I mean, I'm a little nervous about lining up my shocks correctly, but I guess I shouldn't be. Just make sure they're even on both sides. I'm sure there's a technical thing in the manual on how to put your shocks back on correctly, because that would be pretty bad if these were not even. So anyway, knock this off. Don't have to worry about destroying the dust cover, but we got to get this lower race off. That looks a little rough too. See, up there's some divots back there. So I'm gonna knock this off, and then need to take a long screwdriver or something to punch out these suckers here. Gonna punch this out from the bottom. There's a little lip that you can get on under, and then the same thing on the bottom. So stick your punch down through here and knock it out. There's a little lip that can catch, and you'll knock that sucker right out the bottom. I am destroying the dust cover. Good thing we're not using that again. That's just the light aluminum. But started moving it up. You can see where I was hitting right there, hitting right on the bottom race there. Now I'm gonna flip it over, work it on the other side. This is way more fun than it should be. You gotta really wail on this thing to get it off. And I'm going from one side to the other just to try and get it off evenly, but I don't think it really cares. You just gotta wail on it. Make sure you have a good enough thing to hit and a big enough hammer. Probably a couple solid hits on this would be enough, but really, if I didn't have this connected to the wheel and this thing was moving all around, I don't think I'd be very happy. So kind of glad I left it connected. Once it pops off, you'll feel joy and exhaustion, and I would highly recommend not messing up your steering stem there. I'll have to polish that out, sand it down. It's probably not a big deal. Hopefully nothing important sits there. I mean, you have brackets and braces that fit down over that, but I don't want that to be an issue. And this guy is probably fine, so I don't recommend trying to take that off if you don't have to. Man, that was a pain in the butt. All right, so that guy's out. I'll probably have to sand this and clean it up. Make sure there's no burrs or no catches on that. I guess it's not a big deal, but I don't want to put this thing back together and have to take it apart again. So, dust cover, definitely destroyed that. Collecting all our parts and pieces. Now you got to get the insides out. So you guys see how this inner race is actually seated evenly around the whole thing? I know, this is in the way. Can't hardly see it. But on the bottom, it looks like it's seated perfectly down where it's supposed to be. Before I take this one out, I'm looking at this. I'm like, I think this is supposed to be sitting up at that groove. Because if you look over here, I don't know if you can see that here. I think right there it's seated perfectly up to that groove. So the shimmy shake on this thing could have easily been the fact that this lower race was not sitting where it's supposed to be. I could probably knock this up in there and seat it on that ridge where I bet you it's supposed to be seated. Because I think as it comes around, maybe up here in the top, I can feel it seated right there correctly, and then it goes down and it looks like it's not in place. So I think we may have found the reason this thing shimmied and shook around at higher speeds. So the steering issue was the bearings sitting in their locations, but I think the reason it was shaken is probably all due to that race in there being knocked out of place. I wasn't finding a screwdriver that would work in here, so I found this pry bar that has a little bit of an extra bend on the end. She's knocking her right out. So I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but nope. Thought I could show you knocking it out, but this is working. All right, here it goes. See if I can just do it with my hand. Final push. There we go. Lower race. Time to do the upper race. All right, now we're gonna go ahead. Top one's out. Go ahead and clean all this up. Clean all this up. Throw the new races in the freezer. And let them chill up so they'll be easier to go in. Put a little bit of grease in here, and we drop that down in. It'll slide into place. And we can actually use these old races, tap them in once they're dropping down in there. So get her all cleaned up here. Get her all cleaned up down here. And I'll see you guys on the next one. We'll reassemble.